since I said I was just recording the episode, so want to wait until you got in to start the recording. So.
Well, I got a tight schedule around here with animals.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
So I just finished up with the chickens, so here I am.
Yeah. We got like a little farm or something like that at your place? Or?
No, interestingly enough, we are St. Paul Animal Control unofficial, and we rescue chickens that people dump.
Oh, okay.
They're usually damaged, and we get them back to health and foster them out.
Oh, I've never heard of that before. I guess I never knew that was a thing.
A couple of big places down here, and of course across the country, there are lots of them. I wasn't aware either, but my wife got going on this, and here we are. Okay. We've got 4. You might hear them in the background a little bit if they start fighting with each other.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, man. I tell you. Well, this is separate from the actual podcast, because the podcast that we're doing tonight will be a live broadcast with more people than just myself. This is just more, since you were able to only fit this time in, that I didn't ask anybody else to join. I just figured I'll just do a one-on-one, because I haven't done any one-on-one interviews in a while. So I figured, well, I'll do one with you. And yeah, I was reading your website and looking at some stuff that I knew about you beforehand, and I'm just like, wow, you really. I guess we consider like a legend over there in the Minnesota and whatnot, for all the music and stuff that you've been a part of and everything.
I look back, and it's been remarkably busy and varied career, and most of it's based on luck, right place, right time. You can plan for things all you want to, but usually something is just completely the opposite comes out of left field, and you got to be ready for it. So I happen to be ready a few times, which is good.
Yeah, it seems like it. Just like just like when you're talking about, just right place, right time. I mean, I feel like that's how you and I kind of are similar with each other, because a lot of things that have happened to me are I think I was just right place, right time. But yeah, you got to take advantage of the opportunities when they come. That's for sure.
You sure do. You got to be ready.
So Gary, I mean, I don't know how often you get interviewed much or whatnot, but I'm thinking, that because you're being so busy, that maybe it's not as much as it used to be. But a lot of people know about your history. I'm guessing a lot of people know about everything that you've accomplished in your life. What's something that somebody wouldn't know about? Like if I was going to ask you a question, like what's something that you've done in your life that maybe you only know that nobody else knows?
Well, recently I picked up the bass, and I thought it would be fun to learn how to play bass, and so I got an offer. I played a few things. I did the Gales in November tour with Minnesota Public Radio, playing bass, doing just a short little tour. And my wife has a group called Brass Lassie, which is traditional Irish Scottish music with a horn section. And they lost their bass player, and she thought, do I know a bass player? Yeah, you do. So here I am. I did that, and then I just closed up a run of the Broadway musical version of The Full Monty.
Oh,
that was in a bit, and so that was fun. I don't think people really think of me as a performer so much anymore. I used to be a lot, but now it's mostly writing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I was watching some of your trailers, like on YouTube. You have the 60s promo. There's a long trailer, and then there's a short trailer, and I watched the.
Oh, did you watch that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did it? I read in the comments that nothing ever happened with that, or what?
Not
what
a thing. Not a thing.
Wow. What was the idea? You were going to do like to the 60s and kind of give some history and stuff.
Well, I wanted to do a version of the 60s with all the salt and pepper, the good and the bad, and most people didn't want to hear about the bad. They just wanted the fun stuff. And the Monkees and the Beatles and things like that. They didn't want to hear about Kennedy or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. They didn't want to hear any of that. And I understand it, because they feel like it should be an entertaining thing, and that can kind of bring a guy down, especially the Vietnam stuff. but I still enjoyed doing it. I still have the script. It's still ready to go if anybody wants it. You know.
Oh, and then you were playing guitar and singing songs and stuff. I'm just like, man, it's just like you knew what you were doing, and I just don't understand why nobody. Because I mean, I get it. You know, I mean, maybe a lot of the negative stuff has been overthrown in our in our throats for so many years and all that. But it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is part of history, and especially when it comes to like the concerts, because you were highlighting Woodstock in the piece, and I feel like sometimes that I was born at the right time, but then sometimes born at the wrong time, because I born in '83 and I was not around when Woodstock happened. But I think had I been around, I think I would have probably tried to find a way to go down there, because I feel like
Yeah.
that was one of the first big festivals, next to the one in Miami and all that stuff, to actually tell people that, hey, we should have concerts, we should have festivals, this should be a thing, and away it went.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were talking about. I'm sure you're pretty much aware that during the time of the Woodstock Festival, there was the Harlem Black Music Festival as well, and I didn't know anything about that until I started watching that documentary. See,
I didn't
never
either.
told
I
or
didn't
anything
either.
like that either. So
Yeah. Yeah. That was really something. Nina Simone in that documentary was pretty wild. And it was a very wonderful little atmosphere they had going on there. And it's surprising that we don't know as much about it. But we just don't get fed the history sometimes. So,
well, I mean, there's a lot of things of that. I'm guessing, which in school that they didn't teach us. I always thought it'd be kind of fun to, some schools get a chance to have like a radio station and stuff in their school, to teach people how to do that type of thing. And I wish that we could have had that, because in our school, it was just your basic, the same old, but I would have thought that people, and I think should still be a thing, and I'm sure you probably agree that there should be more positive things being taught than just negative things, because they throw about the war and all that stuff, and tell us all that stuff, but they don't tell us about the history of music, the history of film, the history of this, the history of that, to get people more interested in the arts rather than, oh, I want to be in the military when I grow up,
Yeah, or in business, And
yeah.
The thing about that, now that you're talking about that '60s reel that I did, the thing I like about it is the title was Music, Mayhem, and Miracles, I think. And it had all of those elements, and it's a good balance, I thought. And especially the miraculous thing about landing a man on the moon, to me, was I just fell apart when I saw that on TV when I was a kid. I thought, how did they do that? And what a miracle that was, and getting, civil rights legislation. And it wasn't all just assassinations and everything. It was good, positive stuff going on. And I grew up to that music, and of course I'm real tuned into all those songs. So it was so much fun. And as a writer, we have to start somewhere, because you got to emulate the people that you love musically first, and then you get tired of sounding like them, and then you try to sound like yourself. So
that's right.
That's how the Renouveau band came along. It was all about that kind of thing, strict original music. And now I've become a real staunch defender of that everywhere that I go. Even though I have a Buddy Holly show, and I've got a what is it? Magic Carpet Ride show, and all these things. The original music is what really gets me going. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you can come up with an idea and kind of keep it in the tone of that decade or whatever theme it is that you're doing for a play or a show or a music act or whatever, it's but it can be a lot of work. It can be tricky, but if you know that you can do it, you can definitely accomplish just about anything you want, because there's so many people out there who are so talented and that have not shied away from letting their talents show. And I feel like we need to keep that going, in the future.
Yeah. I have a thing about these tribute bands. When I was a kid, I was playing these songs when they came out, and I was doing it in bars for 4 hours a night. And now there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 Fleetwood Mac tribute bands in the United States that we know of. And I just wonder, how many times can you listen to that stuff? I mean, it's good music, but what?
Yeah.
And and they just come out of the woodwork. And so I'll tell you a quick story about another thing now that you asked about what people might not really know about me.
Sure.
My big thrust after Renouveau in the 80s was theater. And so I wrote, I've been involved in co-written over 100 musicals since then. Then that's a lot of music and and lyrics as well. But the one in 2001, in January of 2001, I owned a little bed and breakfast up north of the city. And I was sitting there in the middle of January, and it was just cold and quiet, and nobody staying at the bed and breakfast. And I was just doing some research on my favorite composer, who was Frédéric Chopin. And I was reading about him, and I found out that when he passed away, before he did, of course, he asked his doctor to have his heart removed.
Oh, okay.
And the reason that he did, and I didn't find out till much later, was that he had a fear of being buried alive, which happened to people back then. You know, there's the saying "dead ringer," and that's when someone's in their coffin, they happen to wake up. Someone had the good sense to run a line from their coffin to a bell in the living room, so if they woke up, they could ring it, and there's your dead ringer. Wow. So I started working on that in 2001, and we're still working on it, but it turned into a show about cabaret in Warsaw, Poland, 1939.
Okay.
And some really intricate music, and we've just done 2 concerts of the music only in the last few days, and it's my favorite thing out of everything they've ever done. So wow. I don't know if people will come to see it, they say, "Well, I never knew you did this kind of thing," and so that's what people don't know about. Even my friends, they say, "What? Where did this come from?" Well, it's been around 20 years. Oh.
Well, that's interesting. Wow. Okay. That's a lot of information right there.
Yeah. Where are you located, Frankie?
I am located in northern Minnesota, so I'm in the same state as you, but more up high, up on the top there, close to Canada, close to Grand Forks, in a little town called Brooks, Minnesota. So that's like between like Bemidji and Thief River Falls, Minnesota.
Okay.
Highway 2 takes me to Grand Forks, and I'm only maybe an hour or so away from Fargo.
Uh-huh. Do you know a guy named Terry Rude?
I know a lot of Rudes, and I know people named Terry, but not the combination though.
Okay, well, he's a musician. He had a Back Behind the Barn Boys was his group.
Oh, okay. I know that group. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just wondering if you knew him, because when we did the Buddy Holly show in Fargo about a month ago or so, I invited Terry to come up, and he, like all older musicians, he just said, "I don't leave the house much."
Well, he should have took you up on the opportunity, because that why not?
Yeah, he's a good guy though.
I see how I discovered you was because of that event, and I was going to go to that, and I was going to bring my dad. And funny enough, well, not really funny. It's kind of a sad story, but my father passed away the day after your event, like in Grand Forks.
My!
He had sepsis, and it wasn't good.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Yeah, he was 74 years old, and I really hate to say this and bring this up on the interview, but I really believe that the hospital killed him. Because they were putting him up with so much medicine and stuff, and I don't think he knew any. By the time this dialysis started to happen, I don't think he knew where he was anymore, because sooner after he had that, then he passed away. But it was around that time when you guys were doing the Buddy Holly thing in Fargo, and I originally was going to go to that, but yeah, we had so much stuff going on, and then the weather, anytime you try to do something in the wintertime, it's like there's a good chance winter's going to just ruin your chances of doing that. So, but yeah, I wanted to go to that because I am a huge Buddy Holly fan. I know it's hard to believe, I'm only 42 years old, but my father brought me up with Buddy Holly music. He brought me up with La Bamba, Buddy Holly story. We used to watch the movies. I love Del Shannon and Roy Orbison, and I've got to know over this interview career, I've got to know all their families and stuff, and interview majority of them all at one time or another. And just recently here, I had an interview with Sherry Holly here back in January. So
who's that?
that is the niece to Buddy Holly.
No. Oh, wow. Okay, here's a story for you. Okay. So if you'll allow me to ramble just for a minute or two.
Go right ahead, man.
So, I worked with Gene Pitney for 20 years. I was his music director. And that's where I met the Crickets. I was on the road with them. They were coming out or we were going in or whatever. We'd pass each other and became kind of friends or not friends, acquaintances. And then I started teaching at McNally Smith College of Music in St. Paul, started teaching songwriting there. And my friend ran a theater right across the lobby, History Theater, and they wanted to do a collaboration with us. Believe me, I'm going somewhere with this. So
that's good.
He asked me to hire a band and music direct the Buddy Holly story. So I did. I hired the band. I got a guy named Nicholas Freeman was playing the Buddy Holly part, and he's pretty good. He's the guy you've seen in the
picture.
If you watch yes. And so he was telling me this story. So here's the thing, and this is true. This really happened because it came from the Crickets. Buddy was they were in the studio down in Texas recording a song, and they called it hang on a second. What is it? Peggy Sue. They were recording Peggy Sue. There it is. But the name of the song at first was Cindy Lou.
Yes, because that's what he was singing. Gary Busey was singing in the movie originally.
Yeah. Well, and the Crickets, Gary Busey really pissed off the Crickets. So we'll go into that in a minute. But what happened was he was J.I., the drummer, was practicing paradiddles in the studio. And Buddy said, hey, I really like that sound, because originally it had been sort of a rumba. And J.I. said, I will give you that if you will change the name of this to Peggy Sue, who is a girl that I would really like to, And they got a deal. And Buddy got his paradiddle rhythm, and J.I. got the song changed to Peggy Sue, and they got married, actually, and they lasted 6 months. And then they were done. Wow. But anyway, that's a fun story. We heard it from them.
That is a fun story.
Yeah.
Because the Crickets, they in their later days, they came to around my area when I was a little kid, like to the Meadowbrook Ballroom in near Red Lake Falls, and then because from where I am right now in Brooks, I'm not that far from where Marku Corner was. I don't know if you remember that or ever played there or whatever, but
I don't.
Marku Corner on Highway 2, going to like Red Lake Falls on Highway 32, and then there's Meadowbrook Ballroom, which used to be a Middle River, and that used to be a big deal back in the day because a lot of singers from the 50s and 60s and 70s and all that, they all came down there, and performed, and you could get a ticket for real cheap and have a good time, and it was those type of venues, and before the days of arenas and everything, and now we don't have any of that stuff around here. So
I know that's really too bad, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid in the 60s, that's all we did was ballrooms.
Sure.
There was another place, something Lake Ballroom, sort of up by you. I can never remember.
Detroit Lakes, maybe Detroit Lakes. Detroit Lakes.
No, it wasn't that. It was.
Maybe Maple Lake. Maybe.
Nope.
Okay.
Maybe I'll think of it. But at any rate, this band called the Sleepers that I was in. We played everywhere. We were too young to play bars.
Oh, sure.
So we were in ballrooms all over the place. I remember going from Clark, North Dakota, down to New Ulm, Minnesota for the next day to do a show at the fair there. And I remember stopping in Tracy, where I'm from. My parents cooked us a chicken dinner for lunch, and then I passed out in my mashed potatoes.
Wow.
I was 15, maybe 16.
But you're so tired from the wore out.
Yeah, it was too much. And we were too young to drive, so our parents would drive us around.
Sure.
But anyway, I'm going to try to, while we're talking, I'm going to continue to try to remember what that ballroom was.
Oh yeah.
Battle Lake.
Which
Battle
one?
Lake.
Battle Lake. Okay, I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Okay, I don't even know where it is anymore, but
okay, well that was a popular venue.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was with us. It was with us. We made some.
Yeah, see, because with me where I live, it's like we have a lot of history with music and stuff because we have had close to Fargo. I mean, you had Bobby V, who took over for Buddy Holly after the plane crash and everything, and I'm really good friends with Robbie V, his son. Like he's been on my show multiple times, and I've known him for quite a while, and it's kind of a cool deal. It's like that Bobby was able to become kind of an instant star after he helped take over because that tour, I don't know if you remember how it went or not, but there were for the Winter Dance Party, the original one anyway. I mean, they were going up and down, up and down. They went through Minnesota once before, and then they went back to Iowa, and then they did this and did that. I really, really feel like that plane crash or that plane, they should have probably went another direction. I mean, couldn't they have had like a limo bring them or another bus or like somewhere else, or they could have delayed the festival or something? I really feel like they shouldn't have took that plane because we were talking about Buddy Holly when we got interrupted, but I don't know what's your thoughts on that when it comes to the Buddy Holly plane crash, because I'm sure you have some thoughts about that.
Thoughts about the plane crash?
Yeah, like, do you think they could have found ways to avoid it?
Well, that tour that was booked, the way they booked it, I mean, that's become the poster child for every bad agent that ever existed. I mean, their routing was absolutely horrible. There have been people who've tried to duplicate that tour schedule with an unheated bus. They gave up after 3 or 4 days. It was insane, and they were just at that point in time, record companies had all the power and all the money, and they pushed those people's egos around, and they wanted fame, and they didn't get any. They got screwed. The Crickets were telling me that in the contract that they signed with their record label, what's the guy's name? Their manager, recording engineer down in Texas.
Oh, we're talking Clovis, New Mexico, maybe, or
Norman
Petty.
Norman Petty, the manager. He became their manager, and he had them tithe like 15% of everything they made to the church.
Okay, I don't know who that would be.
But he also got this contract and said vinyl records are what he would pay royalty on. But then the mediums changed, became cassettes, reel-to-reels, 8 tracks, and then digital. And they weren't getting any royalties off that because, strictly speaking, with the contract, they just didn't get royalties from any of that stuff. They had a lot of money coming if they would have gotten just royalties from any medium, right?
Yeah.
So they were here in St. Louis Park years and years ago, playing for $50 a piece.
Wow.
Because they were broke. They couldn't get any royalty money. And they finally got a lawyer, and through the courts, they got their royalties back from the record label. And it proved to be quite beneficial to them, of course.
Sure.
But and it was only fair. It was just one of those technicalities that record labels took advantage of those kinds of things because the artists just wanted to be stars. They didn't know anything about business. And I don't think Buddy even had a manager until this guy from Texas. So it happened to a lot of people like that. Little Richard. I'll tell you the Tommy Durden Elvis Presley story too, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you, when you were on the webpage, did you see this? Did you see the articles about Tommy Durden, the guy that wrote Heartbreak Hotel?
Let me go back and look because I had your website loaded here.
It's kind of fun to tell this story. What happened was I was in Houghton Lake, Michigan, playing with a lounge band in 1982
Okay.
And the waitress at the Holiday Inn we were playing at came up and said, "Well, you'd like to really meet my dad. He was a musician too." And let you know. And I said, "Who's your dad?" She said, "Tommy Durden," and I didn't know who that was. And she said, "He wrote Heartbreak Hotel." Oh, he did. Well, we did. We went and had dinner with him, and I heard the story about Colonel Parker, Elvis Presley, Heartbreak Hotel, and Mae Axton, who was ostensibly his co-writer. But Tommy had written this Heartbreak Hotel long before he showed it to anybody else, and they'd been out playing it with the Red Herring Boys or whatever band he was in. And at the dinner, he was really nice and kind and complimentary to Colonel Parker and to Mae Axton and to Elvis. And what happened was his wife was sitting next to me, and every single time he said something, she'd let out a snort, and pretty soon or a sigh, and then it became a snort. And we were drinking, and she finally stood up, kicked her chair back. She said, "Tommy's got a whole trunkload of songs back home that nobody will listen to because that damn Colonel Parker blackballed him."
Oh, sure.
And so I said, "Okay, why did?" And then I followed that up 12 years later. It took me to follow that up. And I said, "What about those trunk of songs?" And long story short, I'm Tommy Durden's publisher, except for Heartbreak Hotel. I got the rest of the music of his catalog.
Wow.
But now nobody, the songs sound like they were written in the 50s, and they're just not going to sell right now. What will sell is the story of him getting screwed by Colonel Parker. Here's what happened. He brought the song in. Mae Axton was the secretary for Hank Snow, and then became the secretary for Colonel Parker. And so she told Tommy, she said, "Let me bring this song in there. Elvis is going to love it." So they bring it in there. They do a demo of it with a guy named Glenn Reeves did the demo, tried to make it sound like Elvis. And they said, "Well," and Mae Axton said, "Glenn, we'll cut you in for a third." And Tommy's sitting in the corner, and he said, "Hey, wait a minute, Mae, you're giving away my song." And she said, "Half of nothing is nothing." And so Glenn does this demos it like Elvis, thinks Elvis would like it. They take it in, they show it to Colonel Parker, they play it for Colonel Parker. Parker says, "Well, my boy, I think he'll like this song, but he's going to need to be on the writing credit for a third of the music." And Mae said, "Okay." And Tommy Durden said, "Wait a minute, wait, what? And then they get in there and they record the tune, and I've got the original publishing documents. Tommy gets 34%, Mae gets 33%, Elvis gets 33% of publishing. And so Elvis in later interviews said, "I had nothing to do with writing that song, it was just part of the deal." And so Tommy goes in to see Mae Axton with this song. He has 100% rights to this song. By the time he's done, he's got 17%. And he got upset about it. And Parker picks up the phone and said, "Listen, kid, you're nothing. I'll tell you what." And he calls up RCA, Elvis's label, and he says, "Anybody that has anything to do with Tommy Durden, you lose Elvis."
Wow.
And that's what happened. And
that's kind of messed up, dude.
Yeah, and I had people corroborate that, people in the business, friends of his, and he said, "Yeah, that's what happened." So there's the music business for you.
Well, that Colonel Parker guy, he just seemed like I hate to say it, I don't mean to swear, but he sounded like a fucking jerk,
Yeah,
he
was.
I hate to say that.
He had a drug problem, and he had a gambling problem, and he got this deal for Elvis Presley in, I think it was the top floor of the MGM for himself. Okay. He got the deal was he got anything he wanted for free from MGM, and that was part of the deal. But he kept pumping Elvis full of drugs, so Elvis could do these like 10 shows a week, and eventually it killed him.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm starting to believe more, because when I was a kid and we heard about Elvis and stuff, I didn't really know much of the story because I wasn't into him at the time. But learning and after watching that movie, and I'm not saying that everything's based on the movie, but I feel like, do you think that they told an accurate story? When the Elvis movie came out,
the Tom Hanks version?
Yeah.
No, way, way too nice to Colonel Parker.
Oh, way too nice. Okay, because the way Tom Hanks played him, he played him like kind of a creepo and everything.
Yeah, he was a creepo, but it wasn't severe enough. Colonel Parker, a couple of things about what Colonel Parker did. I've lent stuff to a couple of people who've written books about this because I had these Durden artifacts, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
they said one of them, Colonel Parker, would catch sparrows and paint them yellow and sell them as parakeets at carnivals. That was one of the things he did. Another thing he would do is we would also sell hot dogs, and he'd cut the middle out of the hot dog. And he'd sell 2/3 of a hot dog rather than a whole hot dog, and then stuff 3 parts in another hot dog and sell that. And here's the one that really got me was when Elvis died. Colonel Parker called up the police and said, well, we've got people outside that are trying to market merchandise. This is supposed to be Elvis's funeral. Can't have a little respect. Can you get them out of here? So the police hauled all the merchandise hawkers out of there, and then Parker set up his T-shirt stand.
Wow.
So I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know it for sure, but he sure got painted as a badass to me. And he wasn't an American citizen, so he was afraid to let Elvis go anywhere outside of the United States.
I heard that too, or like because he wanted to travel internationally and all that.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they let him go to Hawaii, but I mean that's all. I mean, I kind of was kind of going overseas, kind of.
Yeah, but we were a state with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but that's as far as you go, though. Okay.
Yeah, it was U.S., so he didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I guess you're right. You know, because it seems like that is the music business nowadays. You know, Spotify. I mean, I didn't mean to make this all about music and everything, but like Spotify, that's another thing I don't understand either. Why they're allowed to charge people money for their service. I get that. I understand all that, but why are they not paying the artists what they're really worth after charging to all these people, including myself, because I love it so much, you know?
Yeah.
Why? You know, I don't get it.
Well, I'll tell you what, this might surprise you, but I come down on the side of understanding why the president of Spotify said content is so easy to create right now that it doesn't really matter. The people that demand to be paid more and have the muscle to make that demand will get more. But 75,000 new songs a day that go into streaming platforms, a guy can bang a garbage can lid and put it on Spotify, and they just take it. They don't jury it at all. You know, they just say, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but don't they have to go through all these record companies? So, I mean, because not everybody owns their music, so do they have to go through all these companies to get all these songs and everything, just to be allowed and say yes, you can put them on our platform and all that? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, independent artists usually will go to CD Baby and just have them put together a collection of their songs, and then get a UPC code and put it onto Spotify, and that's what I did. But you know, I was a CD Baby for a while before I knew much about anything. And one day somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you're on Spotify." I said, "What do you mean I'm on Spotify?" And I hated Spotify then. And CD Baby just gave it to him.
Oh, and they didn't ask your permission or nothing. Huh?
No, they didn't. But it was part of the fine print. You know, they're going to automatically give it to streaming platforms unless you say don't.
Okay.
So that was my bad. You got to pay attention. So, but I know I listen to I do some random listening just to see if I could stand to do any random listening. And I came across a song that somebody had written and recorded, and the guitar was so out of tune I could hardly stand to listen to it. And so it's not juried. Anybody with and my students, I used to argue with them. I'd say, you know, you might not like the labels, but at least somebody was saying no to some of these people.
Sure.
And I remember, and once again, I had a student once that, just to illustrate this point, I had a student once who came in for a songwriting lesson. She had a guitar she'd bought at a garage sale. It only had 4 strings, and those 4 were really out of tune. And I said, "Why don't you tune this thing up?" And she said, "Well, I kind of like it this way." So I couldn't really fault anybody for anything beyond that point. I was just done. I walked out of the room and I said, "I'll come back. Let me see what you've done in half an hour."
Okay.
So it's all subjective. You know, everybody that has creative expression has a right to make that creative expression. I believe in that completely. It's all legitimate. But if you want to communicate with people and you want to get it out there, it's better if it's good.
Well, sure. Well, like you were talking about cover bands earlier on in the start of the interview, and I agree with you. There are way too many cover bands. That it's like, why are you playing the same songs over and over again? You figure there'd be cover bands out there that would want to mix it up a little bit, because a lot of these artists, yeah, they might be one-hit wonders, or they might have a lot of hit songs, and that's what people like. But why can't you educate people and teach them about some of the deeper tracks? Some of the
nice.
known stuff,
Yeah.
Like, here's a song from 1977, blah blah blah. Was never number one, but maybe it might be number one to you. Blah blah blah. Here you go. It's like there's so many deep tracks out there. There's so much music out there. It's like I don't understand. I always had this question was like people that listen to radio, because most people don't care what they listen to. They're just like, oh, I'll listen to the same song 400 times a day. I don't care. It's no big deal to me. Well, for some people like me who are actually in the radio, well, I mean, I was in the radio business a little bit. I learned about radio anyway. I'm against playing the same songs over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what corporate America is thinking and why they don't care so much about the music. I know it's more about the advertisements and everything, more or less, but it's like, come on, if you're going to be a radio station, play the deepest of the deep, play everything. Don't just play the same hits all the time.
Yeah, they feel like that if they don't do it, the other station's going to do it, and they're going to fall behind in the ratings and everything. But I'm always I'm a fan of what you're talking about, and I thought, well, if there are 300 Fleetwood Mac tribute bands, are any of them doing anything from Bare Trees or Future Games, the two albums that came out before the big one?
Sure.
And there's a lot of beautiful music on that, and I thought to myself, well, why don't I just go ahead and do a tribute to Fleetwood Mac, except do those two albums? Nobody's heard them, but it's really good stuff. And then I thought, well, then I'll have to book it. Then I'll have to convince a venue that it's not go your own way and
not the stuff.
All those things that the songs that people are expecting to hear when they see a Fleetwood Mac tribute. So it's kind of I'm happy that a lot of my friends are getting really good work and getting paid really well to do it. And they all feel the same way about it. It's like they need the money. Everybody's got a mortgage, got health insurance, got a car, sure. but they would rather be doing their own stuff. A lot of them are writers and good writers, but they're just not able to sell it.
So do you feel in your life that you got to complete pretty much a lot of the goals that you never thought you ever were going to ever be able to complete?
Absolutely. Yep.
Life's been pretty good for you?
I'm absolutely fine with absolutely everything that happened. I got a picture of myself with a trio that I had called Bear Wire in 1970. We were taking a picture, just the three of us, by a Christmas tree. And I remember just before we did that, we all held hands and said, Carnegie Hall before we die. Two of those people are dead.
Uh-huh.
I played Carnegie Hall.
Oh.
So with Pitney. So that was kind of cool. We played Carnegie Hall the day the Trade Center got bombed the first time in 1993.
Okay.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
But that's something I didn't expect ever to do. It was just sort of a joke. We're going to play Carnegie Hall. Yeah, right. Sure you are. And no, it wasn't me playing my stuff, but I didn't care. I was proud of that. Pitney was a big hero of mine, of a vocal idol. I loved him.
I was going to ask you, how was your relationship with him, and how you ended up going to meet the guy and end up being his, or you said you were his manager, or
I was his music director.
Music director. Okay.
Yeah,
music director.
I did his arranging. I sang duets with him. I played piano. I got the gig because his manager was a friend of mine, and he knew that I knew all the Gene Pitney songs because my sister had his Sweet 16 record, and I learned all the parts. So I got a call to go out to Warwick, Rhode Island in 1986 because the band that they had up and quit without any notice. So I brought horn. I bought two trumpets, a bone, a sax, drums, bass, guitar, and me. And we drove out in a bus, and I got the gig. And Gene was a very, very generous, incredibly professional guy. Spit and polish. He did the same show every night, and it felt like the first night he did it every time he did it.
Sure.
I loved working with him. I respected him. I think his voice was incredible, and it was a high point of. Here's the way rock and roll ought to be. You get a whole bunch of money for going on stage every time. You get the same amount of money every time. Nobody plays a trick on you. You don't lift a finger. You get limo rides, and you get a jet. And
that's right.
And I thought, well, this sure beats going to North Dakota in a bus with no heat.
That's right.
Did,
That's right.
So it was, that paid off. And a lot of that came because I got hooked up working with Bobby V a little bit.
Okay.
And I played a few shows with him, but the manager said to me, you got to fly up to Toronto to cement this deal, because Gene's up there at the casino. And said, but when you go up there and talk to him, don't tell him you worked with Bobby V, because they're rivals.
Oh.
And I said, okay, but they're gentle rivals, but they're rivals. Gene wrote a song for him. Rubber Ball was Pitney composition, and Bobby V had a big hit with it.
Yeah.
So that was all really interesting stuff too. So it's been a lot of fun.
So are there any rock and roll people that you still like do anything with at all down there? Because I mean, I know they're dropping like for flies, but I'm sure there's still a few that are still around.
I'm working in a group called Lush Country, which is essentially the Prairie Home Companion Band.
Okay.
We just play classic, Patsy Cline and Hank Williams and stuff like that.
Sure,
we have a good time. And I play in the Buddy Holly tribute, but I'm not in the second set, which is Buddy Holly. I'm in the first set, which is Dion and Richie Valens and all that stuff. Okay. And I've got this Magic Carpet Ride show that I'm in with. It's a psychedelic light show with original elements from San Francisco in 1967. And that's a wild ride.
Has nothing to do with Steppenwolf at all.
I'm sorry, what?
Has nothing to do with the band Steppenwolf, because you call it Magic Carpet Ride.
We don't even do that song, because that was that had about 40 seconds of cool, and the rest of it was just repeat and jamming. And so there was no real point to doing that tune. Yeah. But ideally what I'd like to do is just play my own stuff. I've got a bunch of albums out of my own stuff. But that stuff, that won't feed the bulldog, as they say. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because I love everything that I do. I'm a very lucky guy.
How was the show in Fargo then? Did he have a good crowd and everything?
Yeah, I think we had about an 80% house, which isn't bad.
Okay.
And it's very, very well received. And the thing about that Buddy Holly show is that the roots on it go so deep, they go right down to the Crickets, and the Crickets endorsed it, and they just said it was the best stuff, the best rendition of the music they ever heard.
So more realistic than the Buddy Holly story with Gary Busey, then, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, you can look up on YouTube Gary Busey at Winter Dance Party Clear Lake.
I have.
And what you will see is crazy ass Gary Busey with our young original drummer playing behind him.
Okay.
And I didn't know it even existed, and then I did get a look at it the other day, and boy, Busey was just nuts. He's something else.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you think he was the right choice at the time for Buddy Holly to play?
Well, he thought he was. The Crickets absolutely did not. They were really angry about it. And the whole Buddy Holly story thing, the Crickets didn't like any of that at all, because they said one of them was in the London production. They had Buddy Holly, the guy that played Buddy Holly's stuff, a cucumber down his pants, and they danced on the bass fiddle, which, the Valines do, but that's not Buddy Holly stuff. And Buddy's band never did any of that stuff, and it really made him angry. But Maria Elena, but his wife has endorsed the Broadway version because that's where the royalties are.
Sure.
But the Crickets said that this was the best thing they ever heard, and they said, "Don't," they were in denial about Maria's endorsement.
Sure. Well, man, Gary, I appreciate spending time with you. Even though we had a little hiccup there or whatever, but at least we got to finish the interview and everything. And you're a really fun person to talk to. I feel like I've learned a lot, in a short time, and you're very well educated on everything you know. And I respect people like you, because you found success.
Stay in touch, will you? It's kind of fun, if you think of anybody else down here that you'd like to have on the show, I can let them know how good it is.
Well, I mean, just give me a list of people, and I'll choose, because I'm looking for summer. This summer will be my 20th anniversary. July 22nd will be 20 years since I started doing interviews, and I want to celebrate that. So if you know of anybody that's in your field or whatever, that would be cool. Give my email.
Okay, I'll share it.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you there, Gary, and thanks for being a part of the show.
Thanks for asking, Frank. It was a real honor.
All right, brother. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
All right, that was Gary Rue. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll have to edit it a little bit, but you'll see that here when it comes on YouTube. See you later, and thanks for watching another exclusive interview for Renegade Radio, Frankie SLAWSON'S Renegade Radio, and Frankie SLAWSON Productions. Goodbye, everybody. A little sideways, though.
How you do your orientation there? Okay.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, how's it going there? Good morning there, sir.
Good morning. How's things?
Oh, things are great. I mean, I've been looking forward to doing this interview with you. I know I sent you an interview request a long time ago. You're probably so busy a guy, you probably only see what you see, I'm guessing. Huh?
Yeah, luckily I've been really busy lately, but had an opportunity today. My wife is going away for a little bit, and I had a couple hours to set this up and get ready to go.
Oh, well, I'm happy and grateful that we did this, because, realizing that here in another couple of months from now, we're going to be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the whole NWO formation. So that's it just makes sense to have you on.
Very good. Can't believe it's been that long ago.
Yeah, and would you have thought that Kevin Nash would have been the only surviving member of the original three?
So sad. Yeah. Kevin's a great guy, and I've been fortunate enough to see him a few times since we've departed in 2001, and got to see him in New Orleans, as a matter of fact. We had a good time down there during WrestleCon a few years back. I was hanging out with the cat and his wife, having fun down there, and Stevie Ray, and saw all kinds of friends at the big event. So it was really great.
Oh, I imagine. See, I would be so envious of you to be able to participate in stuff like that, because I have yet to ever get a chance. Because I live in northern Minnesota, and here in northern Minnesota, we are starting to get into the convention speed of it, but it's not like we have wrestling conventions or anything. We're starting to get into like the Comic-Con type of style, but it's not nearly as big as like what you guys have elsewhere. And I'm sure you've been to a lot of different conventions in your life, I imagine, huh?
Yeah, I guess the closest one to you would have been the first Starcade, first Starcast that was put on, and it brought all the podcasters together from all over the U.S. and a few places in the world that did wrestling podcasts, and we all got to meet up and just have a great time in Chicago. A lot of different celebrities were there, of course, with wrestling, and the podcasters got to meet them in person finally, and it was a really fun event that Conrad Thompson put on. And Conrad, does several different podcasts and started that whole revolution where he's just done several people and gotten good information to all the wrestling fans out there.
Yeah, Conrad's an interesting guy. I never thought a guy like that was so limited time would have all the time in the world to do the things that he does. I don't understand how he's able to do everything that he's able to do. It's a mystery. Definitely a mystery.
Well, I think what he did was he put his time in up front. so he could make a lot of money, so he could do what he wanted later, I think. But I was the first person on Conrad's show, actually. First person on his podcast. I was the first one. That was a big honor for me.
Oh yeah, I suppose. I mean, you kind of helped him start the legendary trail that he's been on, and he's been nonstop ever since. Because I do watch a few of the podcasts. I watch Eric's podcast. I think Eric Bishop does a great job. I think it's great to have a guy who is willing to tell stories, that you've never heard before, as well as the ones that are always familiar. I wish, Vince McMahon would have done that, would have went to a better road than the one he went on. I mean, I still love Vince no matter what, but it's just sad that, we'll probably never get the Vince McMahon podcast.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know that he'd fit into that format anyway. If you ever get a chance, listen to Eric's. If you ever get a chance, go read Eric's book called Grateful. It gives you a totally different side of who he is. And the co-host for Neal Pruitt's Secrets of WCW Nitro, Guy Evans, he was the author of that book. And you can kind of hear Eric talking in your head if you know Eric. So at the end also of each chapter, they have these QR codes, and you just take your phone and take a picture of it and go to the various interviews and things like that are on YouTube. And it's a really interesting way to do a book. And Guy, no matter what book he does, whether it be Nitro, The Incredible Rise, Inevitable Collapse of WCW, or Nitro Returns, or whatever book you pick up, it's going to be a good one. He's got a couple in the works that I can't talk about now, but the wrestling fans will be excited to see those hit the shelf soon.
Oh yeah. I heard rumors though about a possible Hulk Hogan book. Is that one of the ones you're talking about that you can't? Really
that's one of them. Yeah, I can talk about that one. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's going to be a trilogy. He put out there, Guy put it on the airwaves as far as would people be interested in. Boy, he got so much response. He's like, yeah, I got to do this for sure. So there's going to be actually a trilogy on Hogan. So there's so much to cover, of course, with
of course,
his groundbreaking things that he did and the historical events he was in. So that should be another great read for the fans.
I just hope that they cover, because like everybody knows Hogan's top stuff, but I like to learn more about the deeper stuff. This is stuff that nobody do, because I'm pretty sure you can say what you want about the guy, about if you like him, if you hate him, or whatever, but I think the real Hulkamaniac will understand that that Terry was just trying to do what he could to not only just save his character, but just to be irrelevant, and going into the future. And I think he accomplished that the best that he could anyway,
I absolutely agree. I was always a great fan of Hulk's when I worked with him. He was terrific to work with. He knew the art of making television and in films and video, and it really helped me out because I didn't have to explain as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, because there are several weird things that you do when you make these little videos behind the scenes. You have to have them back up in time, and what they just did, do that over is a different angle, and then so you can marry them together really easily. And he was very attuned to how that all worked, and that really helped me because it just took less time and it was very, very much more efficient.
You think that's what helped make the NWO a success too? Just the fact that he knew, and I think even Nash and even Hall probably even all knew kind of eventually what they had to do.
I think Hall and Nash is what really made it happen, because both of them were knowing that people talk in sound bites once we got to 1996 or 1995 ish, because they knew what attracted people's attention, and they knew short attention span was there. So they talked in sound bites, when Hogan for a long time talked a very lengthy, few minutes, and that just didn't work for the NWO style. And it did take some getting used to. I know Kevin Nash talks about it, and some of the times he's on podcasts, that Hulk was so used to expounding on things and not getting right to the point and putting nice little tidbits in there. And that's what Hall and Nash are great at. I mean, luckily with Scott Hall, I was able to use him as a kind of a go-between sometimes between what Kevin said and what was happening with Hogan. So I would have him say a line to marry things together. That was the most important part, I think, of doing the NWO videos, is that there was a lot of thought processes flying around because they would just bark out different, sayings and stuff like that. But it had to be a cohesive message. So to do that, a lot of times I had to have either Kevin or Scott most of the time say a certain line to marry two lines together or two thoughts together. So it was very a fun way of doing videos compared to what it used to, and it looked unlike any other video that had been produced on wrestling before. And I think that's what gained the popularity with it.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you, I was just a little. Well, I was a little kid, but I was like, you think 30 years ago, so I was probably 12 right now, and 96 at this time. When the whole NWO thing came, man. See, because I was already a WCW fan, no matter what.
Oh, nice.
I was a WWF fan. I mean, I was just.
And why was that?
WWF. Yeah, I watched.
Why was that? Why was that?
This is about. Oh, why was that?
Yeah. Why did you like WCW over?
Because I feel
WWE,
like
WWF at the time.
I feel like the product was a lot better because Vince had liked his characters and stuff, and I feel like even though that was cool, and I still watched it and supported it, just like anybody else, but I feel like WCW knew what they were doing. They had the better product. They had their old school style wrestling. They weren't afraid to turn it up a notch. You had some of the best concepts, even back. And I don't know how long your run was with WCW as a producer, but I just know that, like going back to the days of like Halloween Havoc and Clash of Champions, and having that be like the first. Well, like Clash of Champions was like my introduction to WCW because it was on TBS,
right?
Like
nationwide.
The first live like a pay-per-view style show for free on cable. WWE didn't do that before they.
That's true. Those are fun to work on.
Oh yeah.
I was lucky enough to produce the Flair for the Gold segments as well, sure. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And I really enjoyed sitting down at ringside when I first got doing it in 1990. Shortly after that, I was ringside as the floor manager, and I got to sit next to Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes and Tony Schiavone and. Of Jesse Ventura, so out of ringside seat to see what really went down, and that was a great education for me.
Oh, I can imagine, man. I tell you, I mean, just to soak up all that knowledge and try to understand what you're saying, because when it comes to commentary, if you're not used to like wrestling on TV or whatever, it's a whole different language. All sports talk is all different language, but wrestling is, once you can figure it out what they're talking about, you kind of get an understanding of what the flow is, and I think that flow still exists. But I want to compare WCW a lot, and I know people probably don't like when I say this, but I feel like AEW has brought back WCW kind of like that old school format where we're not afraid to try something and see if it works or not. And I feel like WWE, especially today's WWE, doesn't even compare to that. Because they've lost their edge. It's more about how much money can we make than how much of a good product can we put together.
Yeah, I've heard people say that before. One thing that is important to note for AEW, a lot of the production people were WCW people. So not only was the best TV producer for wrestling ever, Keith Mitchell was in charge of the AEW, who had also went to TNA and several things like that after WCW, but to have AEW have so many production people that worked on WCW, that really helps and shows the longevity of it. We have Daryl Marshall, who is now taking place. He was a producer with us, but is now taking place of Keith Mitchell, who has retired since. And I'd like to see something, a podcast or something with Keith, because he's got lots and lots of information. But I think that has something to do with it. Jeff Borenstein, he was the lighting director for us that did all the great Halloween Havoc looks that you liked, and the Bash at the Beaches and things like that, and done every podcast wherever on. He was the lighting director, so he's also at AEW, which really helps get the look across, and so important to the drama of it all.
I was wondering why I kind of felt, because that's kind of another reason why I say that, because. Like, okay, I went to a few years ago when they were in Minneapolis, because they rarely come to my area, Grand Forks or Fargo at all. They've never come over again.
Yeah, I've been to Minneapolis.
Yeah, so we got to go to Minneapolis. Go to the Target Center. November of 2021, I went to their Full Gear pay-per-view, and the way that the design of the set, because I always look for the sets to see what they look like, because I think they're always amazing. Right. And the one that I seen when I was at the Full Gear kind of had the old War Games feel, but like the old WCW setup kind of feel, and it felt good. It felt like, wow, this is like almost a nostalgic trip.
Oh, nice.
Now seeing live in person.
Yeah, War Games was quite an event. Dusty Rhodes put that together for the first time a long time ago. I wasn't there yet. That was late 80s, I believe, that he put that together. I didn't start till 90. But my first broadcast was actually in St. Louis for the when Ric Flair was the Scorpion. So that was the last event at the Kiel Auditorium. And I forget what the event was called. Darn, I don't remember. I don't know why. It might have been a Starrcade, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that he was a different character. I always known him as Ric Flair. I didn't, okay, he's a Scorpion.
Yeah, that was a kind of a last second decision. I think everybody was a Black Scorpion at one time. Brad Armstrong did a great job doing it for a long time. So I probably would say 4 or 5 people wore that Black Scorpion costume at one time or another.
Okay.
It's not a real highlight in wrestling history, that's for sure. But you got to go back and check it out. It's fun.
Yeah, I definitely will. No, it's interesting because for me, I just growing up the way that I did. I grew up in northern Minnesota, and we had wrestling's pretty big, of course, in Minnesota, pretty much all over Minnesota, whether it's high school or amateur or pro or whatever. Now I think it's gotten like more like the stuff that I like, the pro wrestling. It's kind of all over because we even have a local independent company here in Thief River, which is only 20 minutes from my where I live, called Destination Pro, and they work with a lot of people from the cities and all that stuff, and bring them over and put on shows and events and stuff for our people around here. And so it's amazing that wrestling's still relevant.
I'm amazed by that too, actually. But to go back to Minnesota, AWA was a serious production at one point with Vern Gagne, and they had so many people like Hulk Hogan come through there, and just wow, there's just so many. I can't even name them all. It just goes on and on. And Eric actually started there, as you know.
Oh yes. See, and that's the thing, that kind of blew me away about you two is because you guys kind of almost have that same persona, the way you guys look, the way you guys dress.
It's great hair.
Well, even in the earlier days, I assumed that you guys were like either relatives or something. Maybe not brothers, but at least related, because you just had that same vibe. Isn't that weird?
Funny. That is different. I've not heard that before, but it's a compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, because in my early days of doing interviews back in 2006, I believe, it's either 2006 or 2007. When I was so green, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was still kind of starstruck, and I still get that way sometimes. But I had Eric Bischoff on. I interviewed him once, and he was full of. This is the week of the whole Chris Benoit deal, and it was definitely it was definitely kind of a tougher interview to do because I didn't know what I could say, what I couldn't say, but I just kind of went along with it. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing now that this is back in the day when wrestlers weren't really doing podcasts, yes, or really they're kind of he was still doing other things, with I think Jason Hervey at the time. So this was like a long time ago, but now it's like, boy, everybody, almost every wrestler you see has some type of show going on now, and it's like that's what I like about that. It's like wrestling is like so much more relevant now than it was even 30 years ago. Yeah.
Well, part of the issue back then, though, is like my mentor was Nick Patrick, the referee. His father, who was Jody Hamilton, who has wrestled for several organizations back in the 60s and 70s, is a big superstar then, and he did tag matches. His name was the Assassin, and I started in the wrestling business with him, and we were all about keeping the secret. And that's the thing that I think changed the whole outlook of how you talk about wrestling is like there's things that I've said on my podcast even that I would have never said before unless somebody else hadn't already let the cat out of the bag. And I don't like the fact that they did. I still think it's fun to have the mystery of it all. It's it's planned, it's contrived, whatever word you want to use, but there's still a little bit of a mystery about it. But they've let it all out now, and I just don't think it helps the fans any. I think leaving things up to people's imagination oftentimes is better than anything, and that's the issue that I have with telling everybody how you did everything.
Well, that's true. I mean, and especially back in those days when you guys were in competition with WWF, I mean, it was like you don't want to give too much away anyway because they'll come steal your idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One person, I think it looks very similar over your shoulder there. Larry Zabisco was fun. He worked a lot in Minnesota and married actually Fern Gagne's daughter in Minnesota. And we did a lot in Chicago at WGN with Larry Zabisco because he's from there. And Tony Schiavone and I and cameraman Bill Tinsley, we would go up there and do probably 4 times a year, do 3 days in Chicago and go everywhere. So we had a good time with Larry.
See, I never had a chance to interview Larry Zabisco, but as far as some of your WCW guys, I mean, I've had Diamond Dallas Page on the show. I've had Barry not Horowitz, Barry Darso, who just got
another great guy. Wow, I'm so glad he's gotten the Hall of Fame. He was so fun to work with. The guy was so talented. He could pull anything off, and that's what I wrote on most of the different Facebook pages and things like that. Was this guy could do anything, and such a nice guy and really talented. And boy, he could do it all. And we had a lot of fun doing the Blacktop Bully videos when he was supposed to be going against Dustin Rhodes.
And see that match, I mean, I know we're kind of jumping everywhere, but
that's fine.
I remember watching that, and it was just like that was a good match. I mean, that was something brand new that really wasn't done before, and it's like it really hasn't really been done. I don't think since. I don't think anyway. As far as
so, Frankie, a funny story about that is, so the inside story on that whole tractor trailer thing. So we actually did it in North Georgia. We did it a few weeks before Tupelo aired for Uncensored. And we obviously wanted to make it possibly look like it could be in that area because we're going to make it look like it was live. So one thing was we had a really great director that worked with us who did like worldwide shows and things like that, and who'd done a lot of ESPN boxing back in the day when it was super popular. But Mike, he was a camera guy, and he's not usually a camera guy. So he set his iris up on his camera, which people that take photography know that when you have a lot of backlight involved with light behind people, you actually have to open your iris up and make it more light come in and blow the background out so you can see the people in the foreground. Well, he didn't really realize his iris wasn't set correctly, so his more of a silhouette look on that whole event while he shot his camera. Well, Ted was really mad. Ted Turner was really mad that we had used some juice on that little tractor trailer thing, and he was not happy with it. So we actually went to the guy's camera that didn't have it looking perfect a lot, Mike's, because of the mandate from Ted Turner. So we also had Kemper Rogers, who was the person that really helped the NWO look so much that he was kind of a co-creator with me on the way it all looked with the flashing, shots and all the grain over the top of the footage and everything like that. He was instrumental in that. Well, he was the editor for that piece that aired to make it look like it was done in Tupelo. And we did things like make it look like the satellite signal was going out and things like that to make it look more realistic. So there's a lot done to that match than just roll it, because we wanted to make it look like it was live, and that was would be the problems that you would have if you were to be broadcasting it back to Tupelo from the Tupelo area. So if you get a chance to look at that's the kind of production tricks that we talk about on Neal Pruitt's Secrets of WCW Nitro. So if you get a chance to go on iTunes or iHeartRadio or Libsyn or wherever you're at, if you could take a listen to our podcast. We're the only one that I know of that talks about the behind the scenes on how we did a lot of things. Like you can go hear how the NWO was formed and how we did the look to that from scratch. And then some of the things we did with the NWO, like when the Steiner brothers were forced off the road in their car and their car flipped over, which we got in big trouble for. We talk about how we did that from start to finish. The attack in the back, which is a famous scene where we had the Disney trailers were around us and we were outside of Disney, and Kevin Nash caught Rey Mysterio Jr., threw him into the side of the trailer like a lawn dart. We go through all that whole scenario and how we started it from the concept to completion, and we talk about how important the people that were the production people were involved in doing that segment. So there's a lot of knowledge that you won't find anywhere else. If you can go to Neal Pruitt's Secrets of WCW Nitro, I'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll definitely take a look at that because I have been following that a little bit, and that's kind of why I found you on social media, because I figured, well, I mean, if you had time one day, then that'd be great to chat with you, and we're finally making that happen, and I really do appreciate this because
yeah, no problem, my pleasure. I don't get to do as many as I like to these days. I've been quite busy. My wife keeps me busy around here, which is a great thing, and we just love spending time together. So say hey to Sherry.
So let's learn a little bit about you, like your younger days, like how before you became this big producer guy. I mean, like, what was your life like growing up? And were you always a wrestling fan?
Good question, Frankie. The answer is no. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I have two brothers on the middle, one 3 years older, Tim, and 3 years younger, Keith. And my father was an electrician, and both of my grandfathers worked at the steel mill. One was a crane operator, and the other was a heater, which is a steel term. And really had a great childhood. We had a mixed area in high school and things like that, so we got to deal with all races and know people are equal no matter what. And we played a lot of sports. My grandpa and grandma had a really nice side lot where they used to have horses, and we were able to play baseball and football all the time in that, except when it was snowing, of course. But I played a lot of baseball. That was my best sport. I was a pitcher and first baseman, catcher, and played third base when I was a senior because everybody had left. But I also was on the golf team in high school and really was involved with a lot of stuff like future teachers and ski club and things like that. And played in the band. I was a drummer there. But I knew in 10th grade that I wanted to be a TV producer. I just had the aptitude for it, I think, and I have the personality that takes, because I'm interested in people. I think everybody has a great story to tell, and I try to get that out of them, and I hopefully make them feel comfortable in front of camera, and that's kind of my specialty to this day. So I went to college at Bowling Green State University, Northwest Ohio, which was actually a big hockey school. And I was on the camera crew for the national championship hockey team. We won the whole thing. We beat Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We beat everybody when they came to play at our place. And we had two players that were actually in the on the team for the Miracle team that beat Russia and then went on to get the gold medal, beating Yugoslavia. And also two of our guys went to be NHL superstars. So there was a good college to go to. And then I made a beeline to Atlanta after I got some money and actually started working in multi-camera, directing multi-cameras. That's one of another skill I have, luckily, because I worked for a guy that was out of NBC, New York. He worked on a lot of the soap operas. He was a brilliant guy that set up cameras, and back in the day, you couldn't just plug and play. It was actually, you had to be kind of a electrical engineer. And since my father was also a TV repair person, I was able to actually look in the TV as a kid, and that's gained my fascination of seeing the plugs and wires that were in there glowing, and how could they make a person project across the world. I mean, Frankie, talking to you on an iPhone and having all of us together and seeing each other is just, to me, still fascination. It's amazing that we can do this. It's a miracle.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that gave me interest to come down to Atlanta and working with multi-cameras. The guy that I was talking about, he worked for NBC here in Atlanta. And I remember one of the highlights, unfortunately, it was not a highlight, but a low light, where when the space shuttle blew up, he was immediately sent to Miami because he was the one to put together the TV cameras for the Today Show. and for NBC, and I learned off of him. And then I started directing a show with Nick Patrick's father, Jody Hamilton, the assassin I talked about earlier.
Yep.
And he really liked the fact on how I directed things. He thought I had a knack for it. And I wasn't really a wrestling fan as a kid, but I did obviously grow to appreciate what they did and how they did it. But I told him, I said, I just direct it like I would a fight scene. So, there's certain angles that you take to make it look good. And he just really appreciated that. And we become fast friends. And he was my mentor until he passed away a few years ago. And it was nice to have him all the way through from when I used to direct a nightly sports show when I was 25. And that was a big deal for me because I shot almost all the video packages. And then I'd go to like University of Georgia with Vince Dooley, or go down to Georgia Tech, or Bobby Cox was the coach for the Braves then. And the Hawks had Dominic Wilkins still playing, Spud Webb, and people like that. So I got to have them in my camera lens, and that gave me the confidence and the knowledge to be able to go on and do stuff like wrestling packages, since I had already directed a wrestling show with Jody, and then did the packages even earlier for that. And we got to do fun things at WCW that we got to try things, like you said, with experimentation. And that's one of the cherished things I had about the job, is being put on the spot to make something happen, like right now. I've got lots of stories about things that I had no idea I was going to do the day before, but ended up being pretty good at the end of a couple of days. So it's been wow, God has treated me so nicely with this gift of having TV production in my life, and I'm just so grateful for it. And thank you for the fans for watching.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and we're so lucky to have guys like you that were a part of most of our childhoods.
Hopefully, I didn't corrupt you too bad.
I mean, no, and that's why I always thought the NWO. See, the NWO angle made me more of a WCW fan, because while I enjoyed WCW as what it was, but I just feel like it made it cooler. It just made it simply cooler by just that little angle, by just trying something different. And what people, I mean, a lot of people now know, but a lot of people probably didn't know. Even I was learning it later on in life that we were always wondering, well, who was doing these cool voiceovers for the NWO at the time? And because I assumed it was Eric Bischoff, because Eric Bischoff kind of had, because of the way he looks, and just like we were talking about before, he kind of had that vibe that maybe he could do that type of stuff. But as I hear your voice, and I mean, I know it was you obviously that was doing it, but I can hear it. I can still hear it. I can hear the whole NWO fall announcement, whatever, and I can hear it right on your voice without you even saying anything.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I told on my podcast the way I got to do the voice. I believe it was Keith Mitchell and Craig Leathers. Kevin Sullivan was a big part of the NWO that people don't know about. And we were talking in the parking lot, and I think Jason Douglas, another producer with us, is a great friend of mine. I think he was with us. And I was telling them, look, I said, with this NWO thing, it's cool and all, and I think it's going to be great, but I don't think we can have any of our announcers do it, since they're hooked with WCW so closely, unless we have one of them go rogue or something, where they just totally turn against WCW and get stomped and whatever. So I didn't think that was going to work. So I said, but I do have a guy, I have a voice in mind that I think would be great. And they said, well, who is it? I said, well, there's this guy who's since passed away, unfortunately. His name is Kevin Eubanks. He was with the station that was an alternative station here in Atlanta that I used to like to listen to. It was 99X. And I said, well, and actually Jimmy, who was backstage later, he was actually part of that radio station. Anyway, they said, well, what does it sound like? I said, it sounds like this. It's like 99X. I said, it's just very kind of monotone, kind of whispery. And they go, why don't you do it? I said, okay. So, and it was a big advantage to be able to do it, because there's so many times that in the middle of the night, we'd be doing something that we had to have air that weekend or whatever, where we needed a voiceover of some sort. So I would just go in the booth and knock it out. And when I was in Disney, that's where we first did the New World Order voice, and it was the same voice that lots and lots of actors, even maybe Robin Williams, could have spoken into at Disney. So what the cool thing about it was is their Neumann microphone was so super expensive and sensitive, and the sound around that in that booth was so dead that I could actually whisper. So it was very low, like New World Order. I mean, I could barely have to breathe, and it could pick me up. So that's why that sounded so different, and it caught on, and I was so happy to have done it.
Yeah, I mean, and like I say, that made everything so much cooler. Then you had to add that with the black and white video, because that's barely ever been done before either. And WWF and WWE, and I mean, I guess they're the same company. They really need to thank you guys for giving them the concept of Attitude Era style wrestling, because people think that DX came before NWO. No. NWO was the original. You can say all you want about the Horsemen and all that. All these other groups, yeah, they were great and all, but nothing was better than the NWO. And even to this day, I still feel like everybody's trying to rip off the NWO in one way or another.
Well, thanks. That's a huge compliment. I know that something that I thought about, though, before the NWO started, but once they did, obviously, there was a different look altogether. But something that was kind of headed that direction that went off the rails was Stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. They're doing something very similar to that with their gold vest in Hollywood and doing like this with the camera, and Stunning Steve would do that, Stone Cold Steve Austin now, but he turned out to obviously to be a great talent, and so sorry to hear about Brian Pillman so long ago, because he was a fellow Buckeye. He's from Ohio too, from Cincinnati area, and he played for Miami University, which is actually in Ohio. And I saw his last football game because we were about the same age. But Stone Cold Steve Austin, everybody knew he was a superstar back then, and to be with us for a while, we wish we'd have kept on having him wrestle for us, but it wasn't to be.
Imagine, dude.
Yeah.
And he probably would have been Stone Cold. He probably would have been something else, but who knows?
Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah, Stunning Steve with us, he was amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
I miss working with him. We had a thing where we'd have interviews, and then we'd have some downtime, like in between whoever was coming in the door sometimes. And Stunning Steve was actually kind of a little bit uncomfortable with looking in the camera. So we helped him get over that. I basically said, look, your greatness as far as your athleticism and everything like that, I said, these people don't even deserve your gaze, meaning that, you're so arrogant and you're so thinking you're above everybody else as far as talent goes. Don't even look in the camera. Just like talk like this. And people hate that anyway. Like just look, and just talking like this where you're not looking at anybody. I said, that makes people mad anyway. So just do that until you get comfortable delivering your message, and then you can start, bringing your eyes closer to the lens. And I'd helped him a little bit, I think. He turned out to be one of the best interviewers there is. Not that I had anything to do with it, but the reason why he was good at it is because if you heard him on a podcast, by the way, if you ever get a chance to hear him talk about how he almost interviewed Sasquatch, you got to hear that on YouTube. That's one of the funniest things you ever hear. They do have a clean version and a regular version, but definitely once you get done with this podcast, go listen to that. It's hysterical. Anyway, what got Steve to his level was one of the best interviewers ever, who also would spend extra time with us in the interview room, was Cactus Jack then, Mankind, Dude Love, whatever name you want to call him, Mick Foley. He and Steve would ride down the road, and they would never turn on the radio. They would just continuously do interviews, and that's how you get good at this stuff. You do it repetitively, you do it over and over, and you just get comfortable with saying things to the camera. And that's how he got as good as he got, not by just going up there and, it coming off the top of his head. No, it's reputation, practice. It's things like that make you great. And he did it. He paid the price.
Well, speaking of Mick Foley and Cactus Jack, on my podcast on Frankie SLAWSON'S Renegade Radio, which we're about to get our 100th episode here on Monday.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Sorry I couldn't wait till Monday.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could have. I mean, I didn't want to like if you were as busy as you say you are, I didn't want to like make it too repetitive because
Yeah, I
normally
couldn't on Monday.
I don't normally do interviews in the morning, but because I work during the week and everything, and
Oh.
then I have a job where I work 2 to 12 at a casino and everything. I'm a security guard
Oh.
on the side, so but I just figure I'd just do it because it's like, well, what the hell, I could be up, Anyway, so I actually have one of his former tag team partners as a crew member on my podcast.
Oh, wow.
Do you have any idea who that would be without even knowing? Because he's partnered with a lot of people, and this is while he was with WCW. He had a partner in WCW that helped him. Well, I think it helped him be more of a legendary wrestler, I would think, because of some of the matches they had as a tag team were pretty legendary.
Who's that?
A guy named Daryl Peterson, a.k.a. Max Payne.
Oh, wow. Tell Max I said, hey.
Oh,
Fantastic.
I will.
Yeah,
See,
we got to talk a lot when I was in. Darn, I hadn't seen him in forever, and
that's why we would have really loved to have you on the show because Daryl keeps thinking, or Max keeps thinking that the whole wrestling business don't give a shit about him anymore because of how he was treated in both WCW and WWF. He didn't have a good enough run, and he had a better run in WCW than he had in WWF, but it's like. There's things that he wanted to do that I guess some of you guys were frowned against because he was the guy that was playing guitar and everything and wanted to try to integrate music.
They did the national anthem and everything.
Yeah. So I don't know what your history is with him, but I just hope it was a good history.
Oh man, I really enjoyed him. We talked. It was at one of the WrestleCon things, so it had been either. I think it was Las Vegas. Is when we talked, and I hadn't seen him in so long, and it was really great to see him. He's a good person. He's a good dude, talented, and I remember, when he played the national anthem. I think that was in Asheville, maybe. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember crazy things sometimes. I think that was that was at the same event where we ran over Hogan's motorcycle with the giant monster truck, where Giant was driving that. That was a great. We explained how we did all that too. That was a really great segment. I think that worked out really well. But Max is a talented dude.
Yeah, no, and that's just the thing about it. See, what I always keep telling him is like, ever since you joined us in October as a full-time crew member, you've been nothing but professional. You've been professional the whole way. So I don't understand where you think that the whole wrestling industry thinks that you're. I mean, I know Mick Foley
he knows the audio business too. I mean,
oh yeah. My God. I mean, he knows a lot of things, and he went to school for broadcasting as well, just like I did, and I mean, it's kind of interesting. But he's had a lot of other jobs too, and lives in Idaho, but he's one of my good friends now, and he didn't have to choose my podcast. He could have. I know he does another podcast with somebody else, but like he doesn't do too many. And so the fact that he chose to be on mine is like, I got other people too, but like to have him on is like very special to me.
Oh yeah, he's a great dude. Tell him I said hello. I look forward to talking to him again someday. We talked for quite a while when I saw him, and I think I think it was Asheville. I'm pretty sure. Okay. But that was it was a Clash of the Champions, I believe. But I'll tell you what may be the issue with Max Payne and the character thing.
Yeah, I'm
who recently passed was Van Hammer, of course. Unfortunately, he passed recently, and I think they the whole music thing. It just and then they had PN News and things like that. I just don't know if they were really wrapped into figuring out how to do that right, and maybe that was the problem. Where sometimes I personally think when you're developing a character, no matter what wrestling character you are, and Jody Hamilton really put this in my head, which makes total sense. You have to have that part of your personality in you already. So then you just amplify that personality. And when you choose people like PN News to be a rapper who's not already a rapper, or somebody who doesn't know how to play guitar, trying to show them to play guitar, I think the fans pick up on that right away, and it doesn't look authentic. And the interviews and your actions on what you do has got to be at least like 10 or 20% authentic. I mean, at least, you can't just, because people that see you're trying to work them, they turn you off right away. So you have to be somewhat sincere about what you're doing. And to me, that's the ultimate betrayal to musicians. My son's a musician, and he wouldn't want to see somebody that can't play guitar trying to play guitar. It just because it's not legit. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good. So maybe that was part of by the time Max Payne rolled around. That was something that just did not work out for them, so they didn't want to repeat it.
You think about what he did in the ring, though. How good he was in the ring, because he was an amateur wrestler and all that.
Big dude.
I mean, he could move. I mean, I was surprised when I saw that compilation. Somebody put together a compilation of all his matches of WCW, and he was hoping the big one. He was hoping that he could have worked more with Vader.
Oh yeah, I was just. I mean, Frankie, as you said that, I just had that name in my mind. Vader.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You talk about a guy that could do it. Vader story. A Vader story I had. I talked to him about some of the matches, and so going back to Van Hammer, I told Van Hammer to use this symbol. Just basically the Vulcan symbol, like this. Yeah. Well, Van Hammer didn't use it. Yeah. So we were in Gainesville, Georgia, where we did Georgia Mountain Center. We would do a lot of TV tapings there. There was a Clash of Champions done there. It was a nice little arena just north of Atlanta. It was really easy to get to. Everybody could go home and sleep in their bed, and everybody was happy when they'd be there. And one day we did actually 110 interviews in one day in Gainesville. And my relatives are from Greenville, and I was just over there. But we at the Georgia Mountain Center, we did several interviews. But I told Leon, I said, "Hey, dude, I got something for you." I said, for some reason somebody else is not using this. I said, if it were me and I were you, I said, with those big paws, you have those black gloves that are really cool, and you have the cool helmet and things like that. And they stopped using that helmet that Van Vader had. Did you know what helmet I'm talking about?
Yes.
There was this really cool looking helmet.
It had smoke that came out and everything.
Yeah, I think there was some kind of copyright on that or something, so they couldn't use it after a while. Anyway, I said for him, once that steam goes out of that, or the smoke and stuff, I said just take your hands and go like this and just raise them above, Van Vader. Yeah. And that's how we started doing that, because I just thought it was a good idea. I said, you're going to watch, the whole crowd will do it. I said, just do it, and everybody will do it. And that caught on, and luckily that was part of his signature. So it was fun to work on things like that with characters and help them develop who they were and how they acted and what they talked about. And that was a lot of fun. That's kind of how I got to be a producer, because I did a lot of the audio interviews, but I would always try to say something like, from a fan's point of view, but really I was not from a wrestling fan's point of view, but from a fan of speaking, public speaking and things like that. I kind of could tell them a little things that might help them get a little bit better than they already were. So that was part of the exciting fun of first being at WCW.
Well, it seems like you knew how to shape certain wrestlers' careers, because it seems like had you not been been responsible for some of these ideas, who knows what would have happened? How different these people's legacy would have been. There's a guy who just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Well, sort of. I had his son on here a couple months ago, Gunner. I'm talking about Sid Udy. I feel his. They allowed nothing against Dennis Rodman. If you feel Dennis Rodman was a good pick for being a part of the NWO and all that stuff.
Not really. No, not really.
But they gave Dennis Rodman more of a chance to talk than they did. Sid's family didn't even get a chance to talk. It was like a legacy award, not the actual.
I heard that. I didn't see it, but I heard that. Yeah.
I mean, they fly him up and whatever, and then whatever. But it's like, they all had to watch like a little video package, and they got a little bit of embrace, and they got their rings or whatever. But it's like, I mean, Sid was the guy who he would have been pissed if that would have been how he would have been inducted. I mean, man, that guy gave so much to WCW and WWF and all that, and this is how you thank the guy. And I heard no merchandise, no new merchandise. was around because Gunner was looking. He was searching, making sure everything was what it was, and they didn't have nothing, but they had sure enough had like Dennis Rodman stuff and other people and everything. But I don't understand why they would do that. I mean, and then they wait until everybody's dead to induct everybody sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with let bygones be bygones. Once they pass away, they can't really say anything and fight back and forth because you know how political the wrestling business is in general. I think that is part of what happens.
Sid wouldn't have been that way though. Sid would have gave a good speech. I believe. I really do. I really, really do. Especially in his older days, the fact that we saw the way he was and stuff. Before I even knew he had cancer. I mean, you could definitely tell something was happening, but I didn't know. I mean, it was just like he just looked happy and stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't think my podcast ever aired that Sid did with me. I did his producer friend reached out to me several years ago now and wanted to see about doing a podcast. And since I did one and he knew about it, I said, yeah, I'll help you. I'll be your practice or whatever. But it never did air. But yeah, Sid was an intense person, work with him. He kind of wanted to do Sid's way, which may have been the issue. I don't know. But, we all got to get along. And if something for some reason doesn't happen where they get along, that's when trouble starts. And, the word travels around fast. So I don't know. He was a great talent, man. You talk about a guy that really, really looked the part, and was able to really sell his character. Wow. He really was a wild man. And, he really made an impact, both at, like you said, I remember the Halloween Havoc thing he did such a wonderful job at, but the guy was really intimidating and, really, really was a great thing for wrestling and people to see something a little bit different.
Oh, sure. No, I always liked Sid because, anybody that's a big guy, just like we're talking about with Max and everything, it seems like, those guys, a lot of the smaller guys put up good performances too, but the bigger guys, you just never know because it's like, sure, you got guys that are slow when it comes to wrestling, but sometimes that's kind of what you need. Why be in a hurry to get the match done when you're trying to show off your talents and everything?
Well, that's something I don't appreciate really much today. So there's so much psychology that they talk about, especially the older wrestlers, on how it all works, and like people like Kurt Hennig I talked to, and it was like, or Larry Zbyszko. I mean, what would make people react like Larry? He would never lock up for the longest time, and people get so mad at that. And that was what the business was all about: is bringing out emotions and the pace of what you did things and all this where you fly around the ring like a circus and jump off and piles of guys that are waiting to catch you and things like that. It's not logical and it defies logic. It becomes like a circus to me, and you have to tell the story, but the way to tell the story is you have to stop and not talk or not do whatever. So that just gets all blown away when it's one trick after another, and it gets to be a blur and nothing sticks in your mind, and it doesn't work to me.
Well, then whose idea was it to bring the cruiserweight division to WCW?
I mean, not. I think it's a good idea to have the cruiserweight division, but they have a lot of antics. But then again, you got to remember those guys aren't, 250 to 300 pounds. They're a lot lighter, so therefore the impact that they make is not quite as what it would be for the bigger guys like Sid or something. But if you ever listen to Gordon Soley, the Dean of Professional Wrestling,
we had his son Jannard back in January.
Oh, very good. Another TV producer, right? I think one of, and I talked to him one day. Seemed like a real nice person. Anyway, Gordon, his specialty was when not to talk. He let things sink in, and when you're communicating with people in general, you got to let certain things stick and sit there and don't say anything. So when you go 100 miles an hour all the time, nothing ever sticks because you don't have reaction time. People need time to react. Sure. And that's what I think it is disingenuous. It is not fair to the wrestling fan to let something sink in because there's impact there and you have to do only half the stuff which they do now.
Yeah,
Only half, and you'd still be good. But they've kind of headed off in a different direction that, to me, for the most part, just it's not logical. It doesn't make sense.
Well, WWE nowadays has become so much more greedy than it used to be. Because why does it need to cost $25,000 to get a front row seat to a live event? You know, it's like, come on now.
Yeah, yeah.
The match time is not that long. I mean, this year's WrestleMania felt more like a glorified Monday Night Raw or SmackDown episode, you know, more or less. You know,
yeah, I didn't see it.
But matches, you know, and it's like you're charging all this money and all this stuff, for tickets. We got SummerSlam coming up in Minneapolis, and my brother-in-law and I want to go, because it's not that far from where we are, but it's like we're afraid that we may have to get a loan from the bank in order to go.
Yeah,
Why is that? I mean,
it's unfortunate.
Did that stuff, I mean, you charge for tickets, but a reasonable price,
There's a lot of fun things though that are events that are around. So usually, if people don't know about it, which most of your viewers probably do, but people that aren't super into wrestling, they don't know that when a big event like WWE comes to your area, there's a lot of independent wrestling companies that will set up in buildings not too far from where the main action is.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you want to watch some people that are up and coming, you'll see people, like that. And probably maybe 4 or 5 at least different wrestling organizations in smaller scale set up around there. So that's affordable. And you get to be around people you can talk wrestling with. That's fun.
They aired a lot of that stuff on the Independent Wrestling TV app.
Oh,
and I know
okay.
It's like all these different companies that you're talking about, like GCW and everything and all that. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about because that's what I would see if we do go to SummerSlam. That would be the stuff I'd be looking forward to the most because I know they're going to plan some fan events and whatever too that have nothing to do with WWE, but like a fan fest, like a Comic-Con or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I go for. Frankly, I've been to a few different venues like for WrestleCon, and I've never even gone to any of the events, even though I probably could have. Yeah. I just didn't. It's just it's not really what I was interested in at the time. I just wanted to talk to my friends.
Do you think Triple H and TKO would take care of you well if you told them who you were and everything?
I don't know. I know, fortunately, Triple H. Most every time I met him, he was very, very nice to me. Because Flair had probably said something to my impact, and I appreciated that a bunch. It was fun actually being at Flair's 70 whatever birthday party. I got to see a lot of people there, and just wow, it was so much fun. I mean, we had a blast. Really, really a lot of fun.
I imagine.
It was a pleasure just to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in a while.
The fact that Eric Bischoff is like almost in his 70s now, or is in his 70s?
Boy, he's got to be close. I don't know though.
It's amazing to me because the Eric Bischoff that I still have in my mind goes back to the 90s. And that's a guy too. Like we brought him up a few times. So I was always an Eric Bischoff fan more than I was a Vince because I feel like Eric kind of no matter how controversial he could be or whatever, I feel like he was controversial because he had a vision, just like you did. You had a vision. Everybody has a vision, and they want to if they get the opportunity to express that vision, they're going to do it the best way that they can. And some people might like it, some people might hate it. But look how successful he's become, and the fact that he's still irrelevant, maybe because of his podcast, maybe because of all the stuff. But in the last 20, 30 years, even prior to doing wrestling, he's always still been an irrelevant name. It's like everything
Eric
touches the gold.
He talked a lot with Sonny Ono, who I still talk to from time to time, and both of those guys are very creative. They're very innovative, and I think that's what kept Eric in the game. And Eric, I'll tell you, as a talent working with us, he was top notch, man. That dude would stay all night if you needed him to. He's one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life as far as being on-air announcer. I mean, we did a lot of control centers, they called them back then, where they talked about, hey, we're coming to Minneapolis, and we got this person, and we do it for all the separate towns we're coming to, even places like um, Allentown, Pennsylvania, or whatever, and we would do all those various um, towns, and he would be the one doing them, and he wouldn't let you keep rolling until it was perfect. I mean, he would knock it out, and he was a hard worker. I mean, so that's a good start, and that's something you'll kind of get from his book, Grateful.
Sure. Different side of Eric Bischoff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing about it. Is like, I one of the reasons why I always liked him too is because he just like he did you guys did an event in Sturgis, and I thought that was how cool was that?
That's great.
When NWO started, just like.
And what was it called?
It was Hog Wild in '96.
Oh, very good.
Wild, and I do believe
that was a good test.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course. I always kind of wondered though why you guys changed the name to Road Wild when you should just stuck it with Hog Wild, because that Hog Wild was
it's called a big lawsuit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Harley Davidson sued us for using a hog. Yeah, that's why.
I didn't know
that was fun.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember. Now I didn't go the first year, but so we have family in South Dakota, so in the Black Hills, and so in '97. Now I didn't go to the actual event, but I was around before when you guys were setting up for that year's Road Wild event, and the only person I got to meet was at the Sturgis Community Center. There was Steve Mongo McMichael, the late great Steve McMichael, and he was the first autograph I ever got from any wrestler. Because my family was kind of oblivious to wrestling, Dad wasn't really, he didn't like anything that was, not real or whatever.
Sure,
and he didn't understand it. Later on, he understood it, but it's like. But in the early days, he didn't understand why I was a wrestling fan. It's like, why are you watching that, F crap or whatever? I'm just like, because I like it. It's entertaining,
Yeah.
Because he loves his football and baseball and all the real sports and everything. It's like he didn't understand how real wrestling was, even if it was what it was,
Right. I mean, I tell people, they go, "Isn't wrestling fake?" I said, "Okay, do me a favor. It's really simple." I said, "If you could get up in the middle of the ring." Without anybody around you, hold your arms out to your side and just fall over backwards and see if that hurts.
Yeah.
I said, without anybody touching you, don't let anybody near you. You just fall over on your own and land on your back. Tell me how that feels after you're done. I was like, it might be choreographed, but when people go from the top rope and land on their back with each other's weight, I said, you can't fake gravity. You can't fake it. That's real stuff that's happening, whether you're meant to do that or not. I said, that's why I tell them the story about just go in the middle of the ring and fall over on your back and see how that feels.
Yeah, learn to take a bump, and then let somebody hit you over the head with a chair and see, or in the back, or whatever. Yeah,
not me.
How long you last,
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some tough guys, boy. It's one of those things. Well, Frankie, thanks for letting me come on, man. I appreciate it a bunch.
Yeah, I really do. I did have one more question just to end the interview. Well, first of all, I do appreciate you being on. What do you think you want people to know from the legacy of WCW and the NWO now that we're getting to 30 years here?
Oh, thanks for asking. What I want people to know is that we had the best production people in the world working on these segments that we did. And I can tell you that every single person who touched the product with us cared about what you saw and what you thought about it, and if it was good or bad. And we had so much fun producing the segments, being so creative, and we're so grateful to Eric Bischoff and people that just let us run and do what we wanted to try and have fun with it. And it just so happened that it hit big, and we were grateful for that. But we really just sincerely wanted to entertain you and put our whole hearts into it. And when we had people that would come in there and say it was stupid wrestling or fake or whatever, or act as if it wasn't important, those people disappeared quickly, because everybody and their brother was standing behind us wanting to take our job, and we all knew it. But we all made sure that didn't happen because we gave it our all every day. And it was such a pleasure to do something you love to do as much as we loved it, and then have somebody say it's a lot of fun to watch. That was what we're striving for, and I think that's what we got. And I think that's why it's still relevant today.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate this, Neal, and bucket list interview. Now I can put it on the
Appreciate the opportunity, Frankie. Thanks so much.
Hey, no
Tell
problem.
Max Payne I said hello. He's a good dude.
I will.
All
I
right.
will. I will.
Great.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
sir. Talk to you later.
All right, that was Neal Pruitt, and yeah, I mean, what a great interview, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. And anybody that gets a chance to watch this, watch the replay, I appreciate you as well. Don't forget, this Monday, April 27th, we will have our 100th episode of Frankie SLAWSON'S Renegade Radio, and it's also our season 6 finale. We'll have blues singer Larry McCray on, as well as a local guy from my area, Steve Porter's Whitetail Outdoor. And I tell you what, it should be very, very exciting. So keep it locked here, Frankie SLAWSON'S Renegade Radio. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.